Hello and welcome to another video for One Lift Sprocket. Today we're going to actually work on this tri-bike. I have a customer who said that they were having some issues getting up some hills, and in order to actually increase your power, strangely enough, is actually something you can do on your bike. Obviously you can strengthen yourself, or you can change your gearing ratio. So what we have is I believe this is a 24 tooth rear sprocket, and instead of using this 24 tooth, what we're going to do is we're going to expand that to this 42 tooth sprocket, which is much bigger. And in order to do that, we are going to have to replace the rear derailleur as well, because it will not accommodate this. The smaller cage will not accommodate this type of gearing differential. So what I'm going to do is take this out, replace the rear derailleur, put on the new sprocket, and we'll have to either switch out the chain and put a longer chain on here, or add a couple more links onto this chain, and then make sure that the distances are correct. Now, when doing this, what I'm looking for is there's a couple dimensions that have to be taken into consideration. Obviously, this is 11 speed 12 rear derailleur, so I need to have an 11 speed to maintain the distance between each individual cog or each individual gear. That has to be maintained. That distance has to be maintained, as well as the distance from the top of the sprocket and the bottom of the pulley on the inside of the rear derailleur. That has to. Obviously, I can't hit that. It has to have enough clearance so that the chain will be able to move around uninhibited. That's one thing. And then of course the other thing would be that if I have the distance from this pulley here to this pulley here, it has to be able to pull up the slack. So that's why this is a long cage. This is actually a Derailleur XT, which it's called a long cage as opposed to the short cage here. And so the cage pulleys will then need to be able to pull up the slack so this doesn't hang down and make problems with and actually usually what happens is when you put it in reverse, of course, then it causes the chain to pop off the front frame. So that's what we're looking to do today. Okay? Okay, so I was able to get an Ultegra 11-speed rear derailleur, and I had to get an extension as well because the distance, this is the Derailleur XT rear derailleur is considered a long cage. This is considered a medium cage. It's not quite as long. The distance here between the two is not quite the distance I was expecting to have. So in order to kind of get around the clearance that I would have to get to the largest cog, is I'd have to put an extension to be able to drop down the hanger, in a sense create an extension on the hanger so that the rear derailleur is now connected lower and will allow it to go over to the highest cog. That's really what the intent is. Also, because of the fact that my chain wasn't long enough, I had to get another chain, so I'm gonna have to now either check the chain length on the new chain, which is this one, and if this one has enough links, perfect. If not, then I have to marry the two and actually connect the two. I'll have to do this, put this on as well as an extension off the other chain that I have. And then once I put that on there, then it should be long enough. So I just had to make sure that I had enough here to do that. So it's looking pretty good. Hopefully we'll be able to get this thing on without too much trouble and start to test it to make sure that the alignment is good, because I'll have to do the alignment on the rear derailleur, check my limits, make sure that the cogs, you know, that the pulley here, the drive pulley, not the drive pulley, but the directional pulley here on the top is actually underneath there, and as long as it's good, we're looking good. Okay, so I was able to prove, strangely enough, that you can use an 11 gear 40, I believe this is a 48 tooth large cog sprocket on the rear wheel of this tri-bike. However, it is not geometrically possible to use every single gear, because the small gear on the front and the small gear on the back, the length of the cage just simply does not accept that much differentiation between the gears, and it doesn't pull up the slack of the chain. So obviously I have it set on the large cog on both sides, and you can see that it's just about right. It's just about to the extent of what it can take for the rear derailleur, but at the same time then I can now shift all the way through all the gears, all the way down to the lowest with no problems. And it sits on the largest gear, so basically in high gear this thing will run fine. I'm off at 1 here. There we go. So lowest gear on the back, highest gear on the front, and it's running pretty good. A little, you know, it's just about right geometrically for the chain. So, but the minute I shift down to the lower gear on the front, then of course I'll get a bunch of slack on the chain. So it is possible, but probably not recommended. Maybe this dimension of Sprocket was just a little bit too aggressive, in that it was a little bit too much size. But at the same time, even in the large gear on the front and the small gear on the back, or the large gear on the back,
So basically, it will run. It'll be an easy way. You know, you'll be able to crank up hills and things like that without too much trouble. That's really what the client was trying to get. They were trying to get something that was not the little tiny sprockets. You know, like a 24 or maybe a 28 tooth cog on the large cog in the back, and really struggling even with the small one in the front. This doesn't accept triple ring front crank anyway because there's just simply not enough space in there to take the third ring. So what I want to do is we'll see if the customer is okay with this, and I'll just explain what I'm saying now. And if they're okay with that, then fine, we'll leave it. If not, then we may just switch this out and put maybe something with a little bit smaller, not quite such a big cog in the back, and that way we would be able to use the smaller chain on the front. And we just remove a couple links out of the chain, and we'll be fine. And the crank, you know, it should be able to go through all the with no danger of the slack that we would typically see in something like this. Because obviously, if I do this now, and I drop this down to the low one, it just simply it can't pick it up. There's just too much chain here. So I mean, it'll run okay probably, but again, it's just, you know, all that slack, it really looks bad, and for the aesthetics, it's not good. And also the fact that with it hanging out so far, if you go in the back, you know, if you try to go backwards, then now the chain's slack at the top, and that's not really that good. That's not that good. So definitely leave it in the high gear on the front, and whatever gear on the back, and it'll be fine. So looking much better, and definitely gives you all 11 gears in the back to work with. So basically 1x11 is basically what it is at this point, with the second ring, in the case that should for any reason she want to drop down to the low gear on the front. I think if I would go a little bit more, I should be able to drop it down now, and now I'm fine. So again, typically you don't run the top gear on the back and the low gear on the front on the back. You typically don't do that because that's not typically the way you would want to run your gearing. So in that case, she would then be able to have this full length of, I mean, I think it's almost as big as this one. I don't know if this is a 48 here. It might be. I think this might be 48. So it would be exactly a 1-to-1 ratio as far as gearing is concerned. So really nice. Well, so anyway, that is switching out a smaller, you know, a smaller sprocket for a larger sprocket to give you more spectrum in your torque and obviously your gearing. So we'll see how the customer likes this. If it's okay with her, then fantastic, I'll let it go. If not, then we would, like I say, we'll probably just reduce it down one size. Maybe instead of using a 48, drop it down maybe to a 30. I think it's like a 30, a 42, maybe a 42 tooth. That might be okay. But again, now that I've seen this, it doesn't seem to be that bad. It's just that you have to understand what you're doing there. So that's pretty much all it is. So, but the nice thing is that you lost none of the high gearing as well.
That's what I was wondering.
So that's
how about those straight speed ahead?
And so when you finally get to the top of the hill and you're going down, then this is what the only problem is this. As you start to reduce your gearing on the small ring on the front, eventually you will reach the limit of what that cage will allow to pick up the slack. Okay. So as you get right about here, and then the next way down,
it's not good.
It starts to slacken up.
Yes.
And it starts to slacken up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that is not a big deal.
Okay.
All you do is you just shift up to the top gear of the front.
And get on your. Yeah.
And look, and now you're fine again. Yeah. And then you can go all the way down to the bottom, and now you have your full length of your biggest gear on the front, the biggest chain, and the smallest sprocket in the back, and so you have all the power as well, or the speed, I mean, so you have all the speed that you want.
Good.
So as an epilogue to this whole saga was to place the rear derailleur extender a little bit farther back, and it resolved all of the low gearing issues that I was running into. Amazing, that's all it took.